Hey, what's up guys, John here. Janet Yellen just issued a big warning saying that we are going to likely begin issuing oil sanctions on Iran.
We have not in any way relaxed our sanctions on Iranian oil. I wouldn't take anything off the table in terms of future possible actions.
This is not Russia. We've issued these sanctions last year on Russia. Now we're going to begin issuing likely sanctions on Iran. At the same exact time, we are stepping into this other scenario where we begin shutting down leases and access to oil here in America.
Look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate.
This is going to be inflationary. We're going to feel it when we buy groceries. When we spend any money, everything's going to cost more. The cost of energy is continuing to rise. Everything's going to get pushed onto the consumer. Inflation's about to get out of control. Massive changes coming. I'm going to break it down for you clearly with verifiable facts in this video. Please hit the like button. YouTube's going to share this content, educate other people on what's really going on. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, do not let it sit there. One late payment considering your report for upwards of 7 years and drop your credit score a whopping 180 points. So if you have a situation or problem on your credit report, don't ignore it if you have intentions of making really big moves during this massive wealth transfer that's going to unfold in 2024 and 2025. Go to GreatCreditFast.com, click the link below in the description to schedule a free strategy session. Take a look at this. So Janet Yellen warns Iran that nothing is off the table for sanctions. And then Janet Yellen warns, same exact time, that oil price cap has significantly cut Russia's revenues, right? I completely disagree with that. I think many people would disagree with that. Russia is not as dependent on us as we are on it. And as we begin to start to issue more and more of these threats worldwide, our problems are only going to multiply. Now, Biden admin proposes plan to hold the fewest offshore oil drilling leases in U.S. history. So tell me this, how are we going to bring inflation to 2% or 3% if the cost of energy continues to run rampant and we print billions and billions and billions of dollars every single day, funding other governments, other locations, other countries, issuing so much money to all of these other entities when we can't take care of our own citizens, right? We're walking into a massive disaster in this country, a massive problem. We're already starting to see it unfold here in credit card debt. U.S. consumers, the borrowing more than they can afford to pay. Default rate on credit card loans from small lenders has seen a sharp spike to 7.51%. This is higher than the dot-com bubble, financial crisis, and March 2020, right? So credit card interest rates still above 20. Some would estimate it's up to 28%. And when you look at this, delinquency rate on credit card loans, banks not among the 100 largest in size. So right here at the green arrow. And then below, this is 2020, right here, 2020. And then you have the GFC, Great Financial Crisis, and then dot-com bubble. We're above all of these situations, the greatest default rate that we've had in 30 plus years. And it's going to continue to likely rise. And why is that? Why is that going to rise? Well, we're already at $1 trillion right now in outstanding credit card debt. $1 trillion. Credit card interest rates, according to Forbes 3 days ago, that it's 28.10%. In 2008, during the GFC, 2008, 2009, interest rates were about 12%. So if you were to borrow 10 grand on a credit card, making the minimum payments $250 a month, paying 28.10%, it would take you a decade to get out of debt, and you would pay nearly 20 grand in just interest. Just interest. Now, if you were paying 12%, like, back then during the GFC, you'd pay, $2,800. So you go from paying 20 grand, $2,800, 10x the interest. And the cost of the world is getting more and more expensive. But as that's happening, mega bankruptcies are having economists worried. We're starting to see this continue to escalate. But this is the picture that a lot of people are not realizing. Sure, people know mortgage rates are through the roof and affordability crisis and stuff like that. But people don't know that student loans are likely going to be the straw that breaks America's back. And this is why. So you have 43.4 million Americans, 43.4 million Americans, most of which had student loans due October 1st. So let's look at how this works out. After 90 days, your loan servicer will report your delinquency to the 3 credit bureaus, right? So if the average American has less than $400, and the average student loan payment is $503 a month, how is one going to be able to make that payment every single month going forward? Many are not. In fact, what's going to happen as we step into the holidays, more people are going to be more dependent on their credit cards. They're going to travel a little bit. They're going to spend a little bit more than they normally would. They're not going to spend money on gifts. They're going to apply that all to a credit card balance. At the same exact time, they're going to have additional bills. What I believe is ultimately going to happen is a lot of people are going to start to default on their student loans. Not everyone's going to be able to pay these student loans. When you're talking about tens and tens of millions of people, this is going to amount to a very, very, very big issue with people getting access to credit. And so you're already starting to see this now as, credit's lagging behind. People are starting to walk into these problems. Here's what's going to happen. After 90 days, starting October 1st, which is going to be January 1, 2024, all of these late pays are going to start to be reflective on one's credit report. And so you're going to start to see credit scores tank. This is going to be a major issue. As credit scores start to tank, people are not going to be able to get access to credit. They're going to start to walk into a scenario where banks are not going to want to lend to them. They're not going to want to lend to them, and many people aren't going to have options. But if you're in a situation right now where you are paying, the normal APR, which is 26, 28, 30% on some of these cards, look at some of these 0% APR credit cards. There's a variety of them out there. I mean, you're talking 1 to 2 years, no interest, 0% interest. So when you realize that, yes, oil prices are going to continue to rise, yes, the cost of the world is going to get more and more expensive, you have to look at where you're losing money. Where's the loss? In many cases, it's interest on these credit cards. They're taking advantage of everybody. And so if you can get approved for one of these cards, you should highly look into it. I mean, you have to have, at least a 700 credit score in most cases. You want to be on the higher end of that. You don't want to apply and get denied. But there's a variety of these cards, 12, 24 months, no interest at all. Look back at what happened during the GFC. Tight credit standards, the same exact thing happening right now, is what prevented 5.2 million mortgages from happening during 2009-2014. I mean, you could have been blindfolded and bought property back then and would have made a killing, right? This is what I think is going to happen again. I think we're walking into this situation, this massive debt problem, where we are going to see inflation run rampant the next 6 months. And as this begins to happen, more and more people are going to start to step into financial hardship, and they're not going to be able to invest in distressed real estate when a lot of people need to sell these properties to try to make ends meet. So what I think is likely going to happen is we're going to see millions and millions and millions of people start to dispute items on their credit report starting January 1, which is going to cause a massive flood at the credit bureaus, which I believe is going to cause massive delays in getting results. Because, why? Well, there's only so many people that work at these credit bureaus. There's only so many hours of the day. And if you have an influx of millions of people disputing, you can only imagine what that's going to mean for everyday Americans that are trying to dispute items on their credit report. So if you have items on your credit report, you have issues on your credit report, I wouldn't wait until January 1. I wouldn't wait until February, because it's likely going to take you a lot longer to get results. It's likely going to take you a lot longer to get through that problem. And when you look at these situations that unfolded, this is, I think, very reminiscent of what we've seen in 2008, 2009. Banks were lending a ton of money, and they took a lot of losses, and then they started tightening up their credit conditions. But what we've seen with banks over the last, call it 3 years, now March 2020, almost 4 years, they had 0% reserves, so they could just lend out money freely. They had very, very little restrictions. Free money was basically given to everybody, 0% interest rates. That's all changing. And now banks are going to get much more skittish on who they're lending money to in this new environment. They're going to get much, much, much more skittish. And that's why I believe investors are aware of it. If you look at MetLife Insurance, they bet that 40% of all single-family homes will be owned by investment firms in 6 years. 40%. If there's 100 homes in your neighborhood, 40 out of 100 will be owned by the big corporations. Imagine that. What kind of America is that? Institutional investors may control 40% of the U.S. single-family homes by 2030, next 6 years. So when I'm seeing all of these numbers, when I'm looking at what's happening in single-family homes, when I'm looking at where consumer debt is at right now, $17 trillion, looking at where interest rates are, looking at what is happening with the dollar, what's happening with America, with all of these sanctions, all of these issues, I think we're walking into a world of uncertainty. And my bet is that banks and lenders are going to prepare for that world of uncertainty, and they're going to be really, really careful on who they lend money to. They're going to be really, really careful about what transactions they accept and which ones they turn down. And we're going to start seeing a lot of distress. We're going to start seeing a lot of change 2024 and 2025. I've said for a while that 2020 was the warm-up. It's going to progressively get worse and worse each year. 2024 and 2025 will be a hell of a lot worse than 2021 and 2022. That I promise you. And I think for all those people that thought that was crazy last year, I think a lot of those people now see that to be true. The next couple of years will likely get crazy, but the opportunities in the madness are going to be unreal. That's generally what happens in every recession, every depression, every major downfall. What ultimately happens? There's winners, people that are preparing and putting themselves in a really good position, and then there's losers, people that, think it will never happen, it's never going to happen again, history doesn't, work like that, it's just going to be a nice soft landing and everything will be fine. Those people generally learn hard lessons. The smart, the prepared, the savvy, they generally are the ones that at the end, they're sitting there with a bag full of cash and a lot of property and some great businesses and a lot of opportunity that they plan for in advance. What do you think about this entire situation? Drop below. If you need help fixing your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. You can book a free strategy session below. Don't ignore any issue on your credit report. One late payment will sit in your report for 7 years from the date in which it was filed. 7 years. So if you have a problem or 2 or 3 or more, go to GreatCreditFast.com, book a free strategy session. I'll catch you guys in the next video.